You won't believe what happened the day a woman from our HOA, someone the neighborhood secretly called Karen, walked straight up my driveway, pointed at my wife, and demanded she hand over our newborn baby, as if my child was some kind of community property she had authority over. She had absolutely no idea who she was talking to. She didn't know my background, my training, or what I'm capable of when my family is threatened. She didn't know I'm a Navy SEAL who spent years navigating some of the most dangerous situations on the planet. But none of that mattered in the moment. What mattered was that my wife was standing there, shaking, holding our tiny daughter in her arms, while this woman tried to take her away. And that's where this story begins. Because that single moment set off a chain of events that nobody in that HOA saw coming. My wife, Emily, had given birth to our daughter just 2 weeks earlier. We were exhausted but happy, adjusting to new parenthood, cherishing every quiet moment we could find. Our home sat in a neighborhood run by an HOA that up until then had just been a mild annoyance. Petty warnings about grass length, trash bins, driveway washing schedules. Nothing major, just an extra layer of irritation we learned to live with. But there was one person in that HOA who took her position far more seriously than anyone else. Her name was Linda, though everyone around called her Karen behind her back. You know the type. Power-hungry, nosy, loud, constantly looking for rules to enforce even when none existed. Still, I never imagined she would target my family, let alone my newborn child. It was a warm Saturday morning when it happened. I had stepped inside to grab a bottle for the baby. Emily was standing outside near the porch, rocking our daughter gently, trying to soothe her. I could hear the soft crying even from the kitchen. At first I smiled. Newborn cries, though stressful, have a way of filling your heart with love. But then suddenly the tone changed. The crying got louder, sharper. Not distressed, scared. The kind of cry that makes a parent move without thinking. I rushed outside faster than I even realized I was moving, and when I opened the door, I froze at the sight. There she was, Linda, standing inches from my wife, one hand on her hip, the other reaching toward our baby like she had the right to touch her. Emily's face was pale, her eyes wide with panic. She clutched our daughter tighter, taking small steps backwards, but Linda kept pushing forward in that entitled way only someone like her could manage. "I need to see her," she snapped. "You can't keep her hidden like this. The HOA requires registration of all new residents, including minors, and I'm entitled to verify her condition." Emily stuttered. She's just a baby. Please step back." But Linda didn't listen. Instead, she leaned forward even more and said the words that hit me like a punch to the chest. "Hand her over. I need to document her. HOA rules." Document her? My newborn daughter, 2 weeks old. The audacity, the entitlement, the sheer delusion in her voice made something primal rise inside me. I had encountered dangerous men overseas. I had dealt with situations where the margin between life and death was thin as a razor. But nothing, absolutely nothing, triggered my instincts like someone threatening my family. I stepped between them so fast Linda stumbled backward, startled. My voice was low, calm, the kind of controlled voice that comes out when adrenaline meets discipline. "Don't touch my wife, and don't ever reach for my child again." She scoffed, trying to regain whatever confidence she had moments before. "Excuse me? You can't talk to me like that. I'm on the HOA board. We have rules, regulations. Babies have to be documented." "There are no such rules," I replied, still steady, still calm, but every muscle in my body ready to act if she reached forward again. "Yes, there are," she barked, though even she sounded unsure. "We monitor new residents to keep the neighborhood safe."
"Safe from a baby?" I asked, staring straight at her. She faltered. "Well, we need to know who belongs here and who doesn't." I couldn't help but laugh. Not because it was funny, but because of how ridiculous it all was. "My daughter belongs here, more than you do if you think you can take her from my wife." That's when she made her biggest mistake. She jabbed a finger toward Emily and smugly said, If she won't hand the baby over, I'll call security, maybe even Child Protective Services. A mother refusing inspection is suspicious behavior." Emily gasped, like she'd been punched. Tears formed instantly. She held our daughter protectively, as if shielding her from the world. Seeing her cry like that fragile look on her face, ignited something in me I had never felt so strongly before. I took one step forward. Linda took one step back. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten. I didn't need to. I just said, "Leave. Now. Before you make this worse for yourself." That should have been the end of it. She should have walked away and realized she crossed a line no one should ever cross. But she wasn't finished. Oh no. People like her never back down gracefully. That night, while Emily was feeding the baby and I was rocking her gently, we heard a knock on the door. 3 sharp, aggressive bangs. I knew immediately it was her. I opened the door and stood there silently. She had a clipboard in her hand and 2 other HOA board members behind her. They looked uncomfortable, like they didn't want to be there but were dragged into it. Linda announced, "We are issuing an official HOA violation, failure to cooperate with resident documentation, and noise disturbance from excessive crying." My jaw clenched. "You're trying to file a violation against a 2-week-old? She insisted, "It's the disturbance. Some neighbors complained." I glanced at the 2 board members. Their eyes darted away, ashamed. They knew this was insane. They knew Linda was overstepping, but fear or habit kept them silent. Emily came up behind me, the baby asleep in her arms now. Linda immediately leaned sideways to try to get a look, like she believed she had a right to evaluate our child. I blocked her view instantly. "That's it," I said, not loudly, not angrily, but decisively. "You've crossed enough boundaries for one lifetime. We're done." She smirked, assuming she had the power. "If you don't comply, we'll escalate. The HOA has authority." "No, you don't. And tomorrow, you're getting proof of that." She rolled her eyes. "You can't win against the HOA." I smiled. "Watch me." The next morning, while Emily rested, I gathered everything we needed: copies of our deed, the neighborhood bylaws, and documentation of her harassment. Over the years, I had become very familiar with rules, regulations, and the importance of paperwork. When you serve in the military, especially in special operations, you learn that authority means nothing when misused. I went straight to the HOA office. Not the little foldable table they set up at community events. The real office. The one hardly anyone knew existed. When I walked in, I saw the HOA president, Mr. Walters, a man in his 60s with a calm demeanor who had no idea the storm brewing under his nose. He looked up. "Morning. Can I help you?" "Yes," I said, placing everything on his desk. "One of your HOA board members tried to take my newborn child out of my wife's arms yesterday." He blinked. "What did you say?" I explained everything, every detail, her demands, her threats, her fake rules, the harassment notice, the attempted intimidation, the 2 HOA board members she dragged with her, who, I found out, had already texted him that morning apologizing for what happened. By the time I finished, his face was red with anger. Not at me, but at her. "That is not how this HOA operates," he said firmly. "I don't know where she got the idea she had that authority." "You gave her power," I replied plainly, "and she abused it." He nodded, ashamed. "You're right, and this is unacceptable." Right on cue, like the universe timed it, Linda marched into the office, clearly expecting praise for her diligence. She froze when she saw me sitting there with the president. "What is he doing here?" she demanded. Walters stood up. "Sit down, Linda." "What? Why? I'm busy." "Sit down." She sat, not gracefully. Then he said the 5 words she least expected to hear. "You are removed from the board." Her mouth fell open so wide she looked like a silent fish. "What? You can't remove me. I've kept this neighborhood in order. I've enforced rules nobody else would." "That's exactly the problem," he replied. "You enforced rules that don't exist. You threatened a mother and her newborn child. You violated privacy, safety, and trust." She sputtered. "He's exaggerating." "I have statements from 2 board members," he said. "Your own colleagues." She whipped her head toward me. "You think you can come in here and ruin my authority? Who even are you?" And that was the moment I finally said it. "I'm a Navy SEAL." Silence. Total silence. Her eyes widened. The other board members in the back straightened. Walters just nodded, as if everything suddenly made sense. She stammered, Well, that doesn't give you the right to refuse HOA compliance." I leaned forward. "I've spent years defending this country. I've carried brothers out of firefights. I've fought for families to feel safe in their own homes. And you thought you could threaten mine?" She shrank into her chair, her bravado gone. Walters ended the meeting swiftly. He revoked all her access, terminated her position, and issued a community-wide message clarifying that no child, no baby, ever needed to be documented. But the story didn't end there, because later that evening, as Emily rocked our daughter and I sat beside her, there was another knock on the door. This time, when I opened it, it wasn't hostility. It was something unexpected. A crowd of neighbors, people we'd barely spoken to, some holding flowers, others bringing meals, a few carrying handmade baby gifts. They apologized for Linda's behavior. They told us they supported us. They thanked me for standing up not just for our family, but for the entire neighborhood. Emily cried again, but this time from gratitude, not fear. Holding our newborn daughter in my arms, watching my wife smile through tears, I realized something important that day. Sometimes the biggest battles aren't overseas in far-off lands. Sometimes they happen right at home, standing on your own front porch. And sometimes the victory isn't in overpowering someone. It's in protecting the people you love, showing them they are safe, and proving that nobody, not even a power-hungry HOA Karen, can shake the foundation of your family. And as for Linda, well, she moved out 3 months later. Rumor has it she tried joining another HOA nearby, but her reputation followed her. People finally saw her for who she was, not a protector of the community, but someone who created fear where there should have been peace. And as for us, we finally found what we always wanted, a quiet home, a safe neighborhood, and the kind of peace I fought years to protect. Even though my missions overseas ended, my greatest mission, being a father and a husband, had only just begun. And nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever come between me and my family again.